Welcome back to the Total Confidence Podcast. Super excited to be with two of my senseis. And Mario just told me what the word sensei means.
Yeah.
And you said it means the
one who has gone before, right? So the term, it's a Japanese word, and most people associate it with martial arts, where it's primarily used. But people think it's master or a teacher or something, right? But what it really means is that it's someone who is further along the path than I am. And I think that's an important distinction, particularly for anybody teaching the Enneagram, because we can fall into, thinking, oh, I have to know everything before I can share it with others or before I can teach it to other people. That's not necessarily the truth. While you should have good knowledge, and while you should have deep knowledge, it only needs to be a little bit better than the people that you're talking to in order to be of value to them.
And be clear that you're just a little bit better and not because you can fall on the other trap of thinking that you're there.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to talk to. I just finished your first program, not first program, but your foundational Enneagram program, the Founders of Awareness to Action, María Sikora and José
Munita.
Munita.
I'll tell you what, María José, from now on, I'm going to let you speak for yourself. How's that?
Regarding my name or regarding everything?
Well, we'll start with the name and then we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. So, and I think I need to hyphenate it because it's confusing, but it's María José is my name.
María
you can
José.
call me MJ, and that's fine.
And I was trying to be fancy. I should have went with the MJ, but I tried to be fancy, and I know you don't like people messing your name up and stuff, so I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Just don't call her María.
Okay, all right, got you. So, like I said, I just was blessed to be a part of your program, and I learned a lot. And what I do like the most about your program and y'all approach to the Enneagram is that it's very concise. It's not convoluted. It's just kind of like it's the toolbox. These are the tools. We can do this, and a person doesn't have to become an expert to really understand it. So first of all, I like to kind of go to the beginning. How did you two meet? And how did you become connected in the same path when it comes to awareness to action?
You want to share that story, María José?
With a cat included? No. So
well, now you're going to have to explain that.
Yes.
Did you get to that part? Yeah.
So I think it was 2009 when I went to the first IEA conference, the International Enneagram Associations Conference, and it was in Las Vegas. And I was also part of an IEA affiliate in Chile, where I live. And for the first time, there was an international kind of an assembly of affiliates. So all the affiliates came. We're there in a very fancy room. And I remember that the board said that they were going to elect a board member. So Marïa was on the board. He had been on the board for a few months already. He was already president-elect of the association. Mm.
And my ascendance in the IEA was very rapid.
Yes. I will not get into any of those details.
Right.
And so I met him there. I was elected part of the as a board member then in August 2009, I think, or July 2009. And I met with the board for the first time in January 2010 in San Francisco. And that's where I really met Mario. I had seen him before. And we started talking, and I had gone through several trainings already. And I knew of him because a friend had shared that she had met this guy who had these weird ideas about the instincts. That there was there wasn't like a stacking, and that there was a particular order or something like that, and different names. And so I remember that. And when I met Mario, I said, "So you're the one, you're the guy who has these ideas." And I was curious about it, and he started teaching me online through Skype. Then it was Skype, the thing. Feels so
Seems like a
old.
lifetime ago, right? Remember
Yes.
Skype? Is Skype even a thing now? I don't even know if that's still a thing. Yeah. We were sending
So
Morse code signals back and forth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he started teaching me online. I went to a training very quickly in June that year to Denver that he did with Bob Talon, his co-author. And we kept collaborating at the board of the IEA for 6 years, so 5.5. So he was president, and then I was president, and we worked really well together there. And I liked his approach, and started. Look, the truth is that I thought that although at that time he was seen as kind of the bad boy of the Enneagram, who would have thought that he was a boy at some point?
Yeah, right.
But he was seen as a bad boy.
It's been a rough 14 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought, look, this guy's onto something. I really like his approach. I was a coach myself, and I thought, look, he's going to go up. He's going to rise and become someone in the Enneagram. So I want to invest in him, and be as close as possible to where he gets. And I think that happened.
That's beautiful. You were a bad boy. I can't see that, Mario. Like, yeah.
I've got strong opinions on things, and I used to be more unfiltered in my expression of my opinions than I am today. Yeah.
And he dared kind of challenge the names and things like that, and ideas. And so he was a bad boy in that regard as well.
Yeah. I'm going to double back to this, but I want to ask you, Mario, and I think what my show is, the questions I ask are things I'm genuinely interested in.
Mm-hmm.
What amazes me about you two is I've seen so many huge egos in the Enneagram community. And the fact that you two feed off of each other, and y'all don't take yourselves so seriously that, so what was it about MJ? I'm not gonna mess your name up twice. That because I'm sure you had other people approach you to work with you, but what was it specifically about her that you said, you know what, I need to bring her in the capacity that she's in working with you?
Let's see. So first of all, María José brings a lot of great qualities to the work that she does and the work that we do together, right? She's really, really smart. She's experienced. She's got a high degree of compassion and empathy for people, but not overly so, right? So, she's not touchy-feely in her approach to things, but she still brings kind of an empathy that I struggle with at times, right? So we make a good partnership in that way. I remember watching an interview with Barack Obama one time, and somebody asked him, "Do you have a big ego?" And he said, "Look, you don't run for president of the United States if you don't have a big ego, right? And you don't put yourself out there in the way that we do, teaching the Enneagram, if you don't have a big ego." Okay, so I don't want to claim to not have a big ego, because I do, but at the same time, I don't take myself that seriously. And María José has the same quality and ability to laugh at herself, and just keep things in perspective. So, we make a good partners because we kind of understand each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we understand, kind of what our respective roles are in things. She lets me have the spotlight, a bit more than, I might deserve a lot of the times. And, and is she's confident enough in herself to stand up to me when I need to be stood up to push back on me when I need pushed back on. And that's not an easy thing to do, right? I mean, people who work with me end up with a lot of battle scars and, have to be able to endure that. So, and she's done a good job of that.
It's all about you.
Of course. Of course. Oh, come on, I started off saying how smart you are and all those other things.
I know,
man, it's like, I mean, talk about big egos, right, Ahmad? It's like, come on, you only talked about me half of that. So,
so
yeah, I think that there's a lot of clarity around, as Marïa said, our roles and what each of us brings and how we're useful to each other. So we're not pretending that this is something where, I don't know, I'm working so that Marïa benefit from. No. Here, as I said before, I decided to invest in this because there was something in it for me. And I think that's the trick for most partnerships. When you feel that you are getting something of this relationship, and make sure that the other one does too. And that's what we try to convey when we work with people or collaborate. It's like, make sure that the other person is getting something out of it. Otherwise, it will not last.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I watched. Go. I'm sorry, Maria.
I was going to say there's kind of a mutually beneficial selfishness in any relationship, right? Where this relationship makes me better and helps me get what I want, and at the same time, the other person gets further as well, right? So every relationship should be mutually advantageous for the other person in some way, and as long as you understand what those advantages are and what those benefits are, and you're clear about them, and you're all that sort of stuff, then the relationship will work, right? But if you start to think, oh, we're absolutely equal, or oh, we have to be always thinking about the other person or something like that, well, that's just not how people actually work, right? So you're just clear about, hey, look, this is to my benefit and it's to your benefit, so let's do this.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, that a lot of people think that that's bad, so they pretend to just be completely selfless, and somebody's
Yeah,
being
yeah.
resentful because they
Oh,
helped
yeah.
the other person, and then it's just like, so I love that.
Yeah.
That's
And let me be really clear, right? I mean, we always joke about the movie The Godfather, right? Because it's kind of it's kind of a text for me, right? But there's that scene in the beginning where he says to the Undertaker, he says, on this day of my wedding's, on the day of my daughter's wedding, I'm going to do this favor for you, and and there may come a day when I need something in return, and that day may never come, but if it does, I expect you to be there, and and I think that's a perfectly valid way to go through life.
Yeah, and I remember when at the beginning I was bringing you to Chile to teach, and I would sell those trainings. And at some point I said, you know what, this is not working for me because I'm kind of selling you and I'm not promoting myself.
Wow.
So I need something for me. And that's when we became partners. So we're collaborating before, and then we became partners. So I also ask for what I need. If I need more exposure in a training, or it's like, I don't wait for Marïa to offer things to me. I ask for what I want and for what I need. And I think that's why this works. One of the reasons why it works.
Yeah. Yeah, that's rare. So I like I said, I've always been amazed that how you two work together, and you're not like, what I'm saying, in an inferior role. You understand what I'm saying? Because some people's egos, it's like, oh yeah, I got you, but And I just love that you two, the mutual respect between you two.
Mm.
I want to nerd out just a little bit with you, MJ, about Chile, because I am fascinated at the fact that you're from Chile. Paint a picture for those who have never been there, what it's like growing up there and how being from Chile has, especially since you've traveled the world, how it has shaped your worldview.
Mm. Interesting. So Chile is a very long and narrow country in South America at the very end. It's the most southern country with Argentina. And we have the ocean on one side and the mountains, the Andes Mountains on the other side. And I can go within 2 hours to either the coast or the mountains to ski. But we're kind of isolated in that way. So there are kind of geographical barriers to getting here. There are many, many hours to get anywhere. So to me, getting on a plane and flying 10 hours, just normal. We speak Spanish. Most people speak Spanish and some speak other languages, but we were all very kind of looked the same until very recently. There wasn't a lot of immigration, or mainly European immigration there was. And all of a sudden, after, I don't know, like 50 years ago, after the coup we had, and we have a dictatorship, things kind of changed for good, in good and bad ways. And Chile became a very stable country politically and economically. And with a lot of people wanting to invest here, a lot of people wanting to come here, a lot of people from other South American and Latin American countries wanting to immigrating here. So we became a lot more diverse in the streets. Mentally, we're not that diverse, but but in the streets you see more diversity. So we feel kind of different, better than the other countries in the neighborhood, or we felt until recently. But we also feel like isolated and special and different, a bit foreignish in a way. So for me, because I studied in a British school and I worked in a multinational company from the beginning, I had access to kind of other cultures and countries, and got to see a lot. And so working on the Enneagram with that background, to me, it's a bit transparent, I would have to say, because I'm used to the international thing. But it's also interesting for me to see how the phenomena, like how US-centric the IEA was, for example, or so things that for Americans was more transparent. For me, I was able to see it because I come from such a remote place where we look at the North, kind of Europe and the States, for references, music, food, architecture. We look at the North, but people there don't look south for it, you know.
Yeah.
They just have their lives. But I don't know, most of the music we listen to or the movies that we watch come from there. You know, so it's, yeah.
It's beautiful. I'm gonna come back to Chile for a second, but Mary, I want to ask you this, and this is the question I've been dying to ask you today. When you first started changing the language or the terms, transmitting, navigating, preserving, and introducing this into the Enneagram space, were you fearful of being rejected? Like, what was going through what were you going through emotionally, mentally when you say, you know what, I'm gonna put this in this space right now, and knowing that people are kind of traditional when it comes to this?
Yeah. I, I started chuckling a little bit when you said fearful.
If anything, excited to see the impact of the bomb.
um, so yeah, no, there wasn't fearful about it. There was I've been frustrated over the years of by some of the what I'll call the unthoughtful reaction to what I've done, right? I get irritated when people say, "Oh, he's just changing the terms, and you shouldn't do that." Or I've been told by some other Enneagram teachers, "Oh, you're just confusing people by doing that," and that always just irritates me, right? Like people aren't smart enough to kind of figure this out on their own and choose terminology that works for them. So there's that part of it, but look, I work with real people in the real world. Okay. I don't just do workshops where I talk about this stuff and then the people listen to it and then they go off and, live their lives and I never have to deal with them again. Right.
Mhm.
I work with people that I got to see, month after month, year after year. And so what drives me is getting things right and getting things to be the most effective they can be, because what I teach people has consequences on people's lives. And so I don't worry about whether you don't like the terms I use. And I didn't come along and just say, you know what, I need to change the terms. Right? One of the things that people don't understand is that one of the reasons why so many authors have different words around the diagram. Some people call type 2 the helper, some people call it the loving person, whatever else, the connector. Part of that is just copyright issues, right? Part of it is, people used to sue each other all the time in the Enneagram world for using, using my terms, so we can't do that.
Mhm.
So, there is an issue of, okay, I can't violate somebody else's copyright, but my only concern is, am I getting as close to the truth as I possibly can and doing so for the benefit of my clients? And if people don't like it, I really couldn't care less. And I invite any and all debate, discussion, and, attempts to show me where I'm wrong on anything, because maybe I'll learn something.
Yeah.
But I don't get a whole lot of that, unfortunately.
MJ, I want to ask you, when you decided to study with Mario and like just become a part of this organization, what were you fearful of being rejected by the greater Enneagram community? Like, what emotions were you going through when you kind of knew, okay, he's looked at kind of as a pariah? Is that a stretch?
That's a little strong. Yeah, that's a little strong. But yeah, so, maybe to some people, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a curiosity, like, yeah, yeah. So your question,
Yeah,
what was I fearful about?
yeah. Well, what were you going through, period? Like when you said, okay, we're gonna go this way, this, because it's different ways to teach it, but because people are so traditional, you're going on an island and sort of, so to speak, teaching it this way.
So I had been studying mainly with Don and Ross at the time, and also did a training with Ginger. It was like a very intense 2 years that I did, going to the States several times. And when I started learning from Mario, his approach, I started first trying to process it and then combining it with what I already knew. And because I started teaching very soon after I started learning more professionally about the Enneagram,
Mhm.
I had experience teaching and started seeing what worked and what didn't. And at some point, I realized that combining things was not even necessary. And so, of course, I'll never forget any of the things that I've learned over time from a lot of people. That's all kind of, I carry all of that. Some things don't make sense to me, but a lot of the things do, and I use that. It's hard for me to set apart what came from where many times, including my own experience. But then I realized that I didn't need to combine, but could use just what I was kind of the awareness to action approach to the Enneagram, and that it worked. And because I was removed from the people in the States, well, I could do whatever I wanted with my clients in Chile. I wasn't really concerned about what people would say about it. I was more concerned about this working, and it did. And it made my life easier. I remember the first time I was asked, so how much time do you need to teach this? And I said, well, never less than 2 days. And now I can do things in 2 hours that add value. We will not teach everything, but it will add some value. So never fearful.
Awesome. Yeah, the thing that I'm going through now is translating when I'm talking to people who understand the Enneagram in a traditional way, and I'm just translating it, as I'm transitioning, because I don't feel the need to mix it with anything. I feel like it's concise, it's useful, and straight to the point. But I have to, say, it as social instinct and everything, and I'm kind of transitioning the way I talk now. When you are teaching a traditional, for lack of a better word, Enneagram audience, do you find yourself having to do that, or you just kind of draw, how is that when you're teaching in that space?
So that's always for us, teaching people who know nothing about the Enneagram is way, way easier than teaching people who've studied the Enneagram a lot. For the reasons you're talking about, right, is that, people who've studied, other approaches have an anchor of those ideas, so they think in terms of social, and so they have to translate navigating. And then they start to think, well, it's just a different word, but it's not just a different word, right? There are different concepts, and there's a different scope of what we talk about than what some of the other approaches talk about. So it does become this challenge of translation. And sometimes people are resistant. Most of us are resistant, and we find that the most resistant people are people who've written books, and people who teach workshops, and people who kind of make their living off the Enneagram. It's like, well, wait a minute, I've got this body of content here that I don't want to go changing, and so they can become even more resistant. You get that resistance, and there's always going to be some translation involved with people who are familiar with the Enneagram. But the vast majority of people don't know anything about the Enneagram yet, right? So even though it's becoming more popular, it's really not that well known compared to a lot of other things. Again, that is changing, but still, most of the people we encounter don't have that baggage that they bring.
I agree with everything Mario said, but also what we try to do is tell people to just explore this, trying not to think about what they already know about it. And I think it's more difficult with the instinctual biases than with the types, because the translation is less direct. When we're talking about a 2, generally, whatever we call it, however we teach it, people will not change their mind about what a 2 is. But with the instinctual biases, there's more of a disconnect between the traditional way of describing the instincts and our way. But in my experience, when people see how useful they are, and when they see themselves, when they see that it explains things that had not been accounted for in the traditional way, they see the value of it. And some people are just too stuck in the other approach, and that's fine if it works for them. I mean, what can you do? I don't think that trying to convince them will make a big difference. You have to kind of put it out there, try to do it in a way that it's useful, and hope that they will get it. And if not, too bad, but not get too hung up on it.
Yeah, when I started taking the course, and I think I was joking with y'all at some point through it, was just like, wait a minute. It was like a demolition crew came in on everything that what I knew about the Enneagram. They started breaking stuff, moving stuff out. And I was like, whoa, wait, wings. Center of intelligence, where is it going? But the model, the model is, I was given something better, something more useful. And so I appreciate that. But it was really like I was kind of freaking out at first inside, like, oh my goodness, is that a normal reaction that you get with people who do know the Enneagram and who study with you?
We get that. But to be honest, there are not that many people who are willing to give it a chance as you did. Like being open to kind of the demolition, being open to it. It's really hard. Yeah. It's really, really hard. I mean, the first thing you try to do is see how what you're hearing maps back to what you already know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of the first natural reaction, I think. It's really hard to pretend that you don't know anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So unlearning, it's really, really tough. And I don't see a lot of people. Now, those who do it, it's really nice to see it happening. But I don't think we see that often. Don't you agree, Marĩa?
Yeah. And, it's funny for me that this part of the conversation is always amusing to me or odd to me in some way, because I don't get what the big deal is, right? I mean, when people say, oh, it was this thing that came in and smashed all my, preconceptions and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay. And that's probably just because I've been living with my approach for so long, right? So it just doesn't seem that dramatically different or, anything like that. And then like María José said, I think some things are more different than others. I think the key thing is a mindset that we teach that is different, right? And the key points of that mindset are there are no dogmas, right? There are no sacred cows. And the moment we start to think that some idea is sacred, it's a pretty good sign that we're avoiding something. Okay. Our view is we should always be learning. We should always be refining, and we should always be adapting. We should always be coming up with better explanations of things, right? Because that's what all forms of knowledge are. They're just explanations of phenomena that we encounter. And whenever we're learning, our explanations are going to grow and evolve. And my approach has grown and evolved over time. And some of that has been from insights I've had along the way, and some from insights that María José has had along the way, and, from other people as well. And that's what we should be doing, right? We shouldn't be trying to hold on to some, sacred set of doctrines. And this is my big frustration with the Enneagram world in some corners is that they see it as this, this sacred thing that
revelation,
some revelation. Yeah. I mean, we hear people using that kind of terminology these days, that it's being, we're getting guidance from above or something, or,
downloads.
Or downloads. Yeah. And that's just crazy talk, right? I mean, that's, look, if you meet somebody on the bus and they start talking to you about receiving downloads from on high, you're going to move, you're going to switch your seats, right? Because this person's crazy. So, when people in the Enneagram world start talking that way, I start looking for the exit. So I don't know. Um, y- you know, and the other piece of it is, all right, well, you don't like what we have to say. That's fine. Do what you want. I don't care. I'm just sharing with you what I see and what I think, and take it or leave it. Right?
Yeah, we enjoy challenging our own ideas. And I've learned over time to do that before because I did most of the tools that we had and things like that. And it was just the moment that if something was ready, we would change a term. We would have a new idea on how to describe something. And it was frustrating. But I've learned to enjoy that because it shows that this is kind of a body of knowledge that it's constantly evolving and that we challenge our own ideas. We try to refine it so that it explains these phenomena better. And that means that we need to change things. Luckily enough, things are printed on demand and we can a lot of things that we don't need to print 3,000 copies of anything on paper. So that makes it easier. But it is exciting for me to kind of realize that we learn permanently and we see things differently, that we integrate other areas of knowledge and things like that. It's exciting.
I want to go back to Chile and Claudio Naranjo, because he was originally from Chile, if I'm not mistaken. How is he viewed in Chile? Is he a well-known figure, or I've been curious to ask you that for the longest time.
So before Claudio was Oscar Ichazo, who was from Bolivia, but also taught in Chile. So there's a big group of people who were in the Arica school who are still around. So then with Claudio Naranjo, he's well known. Of course, there are people who are not familiar with psychiatry or things like that and do not know him, or of him, but a lot of people do know who he is and respect him. He didn't live in Chile, but when he came, a lot of people went to see him and listen to him. So he was a big name. And the SAT school, it's big here as well. So it's a big name. He's viewed, I think, as an expert, not just in the Enneagram, but several things. And I think people take him for what he was. I mean, with the whole thing, with all these drug things. And I mean, there were several things that he did, not just the Enneagram. And I don't think it's an issue at all. So people respected him.
Most people don't realize that Naranjo's early work was in psychedelics, right, with Timothy Leary and John Lilly and those folks. And his first book, I think his first book was about, hallucinogenics and psychedelic drugs. And he was also kind of Fritz Perl's successor in Gestalt therapy, or at least one of his successors. So, like María was saying,
he's being
I was going to say he's just not he wasn't just an Enneagram guy, right? Although that's what I think he ended up becoming more well known for, at least outside.
But here, I think that the Gestalt thing it's bigger.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Let's talk about your program. What do you want your certification program?
Sure.
What do you want your students to walk away from, like, with it? Like, what will give you the greatest sense of satisfaction for those who study with you, and once they leave the program, rather?
I would go back to what Mara said about the mindset. Because when you have I was going to say the right mindset, but the mindset that we try to have and share, you can learn pretty much anything, and you can use it properly as well. So learning kind of the names, the definitions and things like that without the mindset, I would much rather have people adopt this mindset and then leave it up to them to learn the Enneagram stuff in detail, you know? At some point when we have had several iterations of these certification programs, we've been doing these things, 2012 or something. And at some point, the name we had, like joking, was How to Think Like Mario for the name for this program, because there is something about it. I've adopted a lot of his mindset, and I consider it mine now because I like it, I enjoy it. But that's the thing, how you challenge ideas, how do you look for truth, how do you the clear thinking piece of it, it's very, very important. And so that's, at least in my case, what I would like people to go away with. The Enneagram you can learn.
So first of all, for anybody who is interested in our program, you can go to enneagramondemand.com. And then find out more, and one can register at any time. You don't have to wait for the next cohort. So little commercial thrown in here from our sponsors. And, I wrote a little book called How to Think Well and Why, the Awareness to Action Guide to Clear Thinking. And in that book, I describe a model of understanding 5 obstacles to clear thinking and 5 remedies for those. And, one is the built-in biases of the brain that we understand from cognitive psychology. And the next is personality, right? Because personality is it's a filter, right? It's this, I don't know, it's this collection of biases that shape the way we interpret the world, right? The way we perceive it and the way we choose to act in it. So understanding how that affects clear thinking is important. Then there are other things like culture, right? You're a black man from the South. I'm a white man from the North. We're going to see the world in different ways. María José is a woman from South America. She's going to see the world in different ways, upside down primarily. But that's a little ongoing thing we have there. And she's giving me dirty looks as we talk about this. But see, again, and what I just said is again, a cultural, obnoxious, comment and perception. So it just goes to show you all these things shape the way we, see things. A lack of information, right? Things that we don't know. It's easy to have a perception of what life is like in Chile if we've never been there and never talked to anybody and never, don't actually know anything about it. And then there is misinformation. And we live in a world of misinformation these days because all the things that we have, all the knowledge in the world or all the facts in the world or all the thoughts in the world are available through the phones in our pockets. And most of it's wrong. So how do we sort through misinformation? So for me, the Enneagram is really just a piece of what I'm interested in. Right? It's 1/5 in a way. And learning how to see the world clearly through some of the things that María José talked about. Being skeptical is one, right? Just expecting the facts to support the claim. Okay. You can tell me you've seen a UFO and okay, great. That's fascinating. What's your evidence of that, right? And the evidence needs to match your claim. And for everything in life, being thinking in terms of probabilities or possibilities, right? I always like to say that the most pure game is poker, right? Because poker captures this idea of some of life is just luck, right? You're dealt the hands you're dealt. But then there's a strategy. Okay, once I have these cards, what are the probabilities of this being a good hand and not? And should I raise, should I fold, and so forth? We need to see the world in kind of the same way. And then this idea of falsification, right? How do we look at something and not just find evidence that it's true, but look for evidence that it could be wrong? and that we might be wrong, because that's the only real way to get closer to the truth, is by, identifying the things that we believe that are not the truth. Okay. So, go ahead, Maria.
That besides that, I think that hopefully people will come out of the training with clarity on, you don't need to use too many ideas or aspects of the model, or add too many things to make it useful. So some people think that because our approach is simpler, it's simplistic, and it's not. We try to leave what's most useful and go really deep there. But don't get lost in describing things, but want to move to what to do about it, how to grow and change, or not change, learn and grow. That's why we're called awareness to action. It's because it's pragmatic, but it's useful. You can do something about it. And that's what we really enjoy. And to me, that's kind of one of our secret weapons, and like how we can create change using the Enneagram. Because the Enneagram in itself, it's a nice hobby when you try to explain everything by the wings, the tri-type this and that, and add. It's just fun. But what do you do about it? And it's less interesting for me to describe things using too many factors than to know and find what to do about it and make a change, make a difference in that way.
I saw something recently in an Enneagram forum where someone was saying that their approach to the Enneagram has like 3,972 possible combinations of personality, and it's like, well, what do I do with that? What on earth do I, and I had somebody else tell me that his version has 186,000 variations, and it's like, I don't have time for that. I'm not smart enough to figure that out, right? I just got to, keep things simple for me, and let me get the work done. But I'll also add,
we have this
ahead.
ongoing thing, but you do a disservice to yourself by saying it that way. You're really smart, and that's why you don't buy into those things. So people will listen to that and will.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If I keep telling people I'm not very smart, they're going to believe it, right?
Yes.
But here's the other thing. I think, back to the question of what do we want people to take away, and even though we don't take ourselves seriously, we take our work really, really seriously, right? We agonize over terminology. We agonize over ideas. We feel a sense of responsibility, okay, for the people that we teach and the people that we work with, right? If I'm giving advice to someone, if I'm giving some guidance to someone, I bear the responsibility for the quality of that advice, okay? Because people are putting their faith in me to guide them to learn. And so, and this is an attitude that we hope we pass on to the people who study with us, that you have a real responsibility to take your ideas seriously, to take your advice to people very seriously, and to not be frivolous about it. Because I see a lot of exceptionally frivolous stuff out there being taught about the Enneagram. Okay. And that is just unethical and irresponsible and dangerous, right? So I think that's a key takeaway for us too, is if you're going to do this, take it seriously.
And also try to share as much as possible our understanding of human nature in general, because I believe makes you teach this in a more compassionate way. I worry more about how people talk about things than what they say about it, because it's kind of the tone and the judgment behind it can make someone get hurt. And I want to avoid that. So when people are talking about types or instinctual biases, about profiles in a way that it's not compassionate, I stop that. In a compassionate way, I try, but kind of clarify that that's not really how it is. And because to me, that's more important than what they say about it.
Yeah, that makes sense because it can be kind of weaponized, even if it's unintentional, and give people and hurt people, especially people who don't know what we know. As we come to a close, I want to be respectful of your time. This last question is kind of for selfish reasons, but I wish I would have talked to y'all before I went to before this panel. I had to go before a panel because I applied for this program, and they asked me a question about what do I believe the characteristics of a good leader are. And so I want to know what you think. Starting with you, MJ, what do you think the characteristics of a good leader are? I know y'all work with leaders and have seen many, but what sticks out to you?
Try to leave some things for Mario, but I think that self-awareness, it's really important. It's really, really hard to be a good leader without knowing yourself well. And that never ends. To me, the best leaders I've seen are the ones who understand what their strengths and weaknesses are and know how to manage them. Doesn't mean that they need to change all the weaknesses, but manage them properly, hiring someone to compensate for what they don't do or look at, or just making sure that it's properly managed when needed. And that's why the Enneagram is so useful in that regard for leadership development. They also need to understand people in general. And they need to really want to do it. There's a drive that you cannot come up with if it's not there. And many times in my work with leaders, not leaders, with people who have leadership roles, it's helping them connect with that drive, because sometimes there are kind of, it's a mindset or judgments about prejudices about what's leadership and how it's bad and power and all of that. And if that drive is not there, it's really hard to be a leader or a good one.
It's interesting. I don't know if we've ever explicitly discussed that very point there, Maria Jose, but we've probably touched on it. But it's exactly what I was thinking too, right? So when people ask me this question, I agree. Self-awareness is part of it, and understanding of people is a huge part of it. Adaptability is a big part of it, because what makes a good leader in one environment will not necessarily make for a good leader in another environment. And we see all the time where CEOs, for example, will get these incredible results at one company, and then they'll go to a different company and they'll fail miserably because it's a different environment requiring different skill sets and so forth. So they have to be adaptable. But I do think that a lot of those things can be taught, but the thing that can't be taught is this just need to lead. Right? Is that I need to be the management theorist David McClelland talked about power motivation, right? It's just this fundamental need to have an impact on my environment and a willingness to step forward and make it happen. And you can't teach that to people. I remember, my youngest son, he's he's a very good athlete and was always good. And particularly when he was really little, all the other kids would want to be around him and want to, kind of just be with him. He's got charming personality, good looking, he had the whole thing. And he just was indifferent to it. And he had no interest in stepping up and being the team leader. You know, he just wanted to have fun and go out and play ball. And I was saying to him one day, Enrico, you know, you gotta step up and be a leader here. They're looking to you for that. And he says, why do I have to be the leader? Right? Why can't somebody else lead, you know? And again, it's just something that's there or it's not. And if it's not there, that's fine, right? Because it's not easy to be a leader.
Yeah.
You got to bear, first of all, it's a lot of work, right? And you got to
Yeah.
bear the brunts and, bear the brunt of the slings and arrows that people throw your way. But you just, like being a musician or anything else, right? If, there are people who make it because they just can't think of not being a musician, right? So they stick it out.
So just real quick on that, you're saying that you have to be born with that, you believe, like that part, that drive?
I'm reluctant to say you're born with it. Um, but it's there early, right? I mean, I don't know when exactly it comes, but I think that's the hardest thing to teach when it comes to leadership. It's just that fundamental get up in the morning, and it's just what you naturally do, right? So it can be improved for everybody, but
And it doesn't have to be kind of in every domain. So
right.
you don't need to want to change the world to be a leader, but it's wanting to have an impact in your environment. And it can be a small environment or a big environment. That's why people can be a good leader of a small team, but not a good CEO, for example. Not everyone wants to have that kind of impact. You require a particular quality, I think, to want to go through the burden of being the CEO. You have to need it, I think.
Yeah.
To be a good one.
Yeah. Man. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time to come on. And I wanted this to be kind of to flow like this. This is probably the least structured I've been on here. And so I'm glad because this is a jewel and a gem. I'm walking away with a lot of great ideas that you expressed. So I really, really appreciate. And right now you have a um, certification program going on, as you said earlier. And how do those who are interested connect with you?
So you can send us an email at info@awareness-to-action.com, and we'll get back to you. And our corporate website is awareness-to-action.com, and where the certification program information is enneagramondemand.com. But even if people aren't interested in the certification program, we got a lot of great resources at enneagramondemand.com. A lot of them are free, so we encourage people to go check that out and download whatever they want.
We also have the
I
Awareness
want
to
to say,
Action Enneagram podcast.
oh yeah. Check that out. And let's see, what else can we pitch here now that we have the platform?
We're doing a live program
Yeah.
for the first time after the pandemic. We're doing a 2-day subtypes workshop in Nashville in April.
The end of April. Yeah. So if you're anywhere near Nashville,
or want to go there, you don't have to be near.
Or want to go there. There you go. This is true. Yeah. Grab a bus ticket and head on over to Nashville.
We have people coming from Europe.
Yeah, we got somebody coming from Norway. I mean, people coming from all over, so that'll be fun. But I also want to say, Ahmad, thank you for having us. And we've gotten to know you a bit over the past months, and it's been a real pleasure. We think you're one of the good guys, and just always appreciate your company, appreciate your friendship, and I love the way that you bring an open mind and a curiosity and an eagerness to learn to everything that you do. And I think that that's what this podcast is all about. So kudos to you for all that you're doing as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This Total Confidence Podcast with my two senseis, Mario and MJ. I really appreciate it. I have benefited so much from your course in real life. And that's what I love about it. It's something that I can use immediately. And I'll just close with this, and I share this with you, Mario. I work with a bunch of preservers, and I'm a navigator, and I'm focused on people. And they come in the office, I got papers everywhere, and they're like, okay, did you get these signatures from the people? I'm like, no, I'm in there basically like a like a therapist. I'm in there, I got somebody, I'm in there talking, and they're just kind of like, okay, did you get this done? And I'm like, why are they so petty? All they worried about is the processes. And then when I was taking your course, the light bulb went off. I said, oh, they're preservers, and I'm driving them crazy, just like they're driving me crazy. But this is immediately, what y'all are teaching me, made an impact in my life. And my wife is a transmitter, but that's a whole nother conversation. I thought she was a navigator like me, and we just found out she's a transmitting too. That's a whole nother show. So thank you so much. This is Total Confidence Podcast. I'm with the Awareness to Action International. Thank you for listening.